In exercise 3, you were basically taking exercise 2 structure and adding CSS rules. So you might have adjusted fonts, font sizes, font weights, colors, basic things like that. Some of you may have pushed a little further and started experimenting with positioning elements. Exercise 4 and exercises beyond are going to rely more and more on your understanding of CSS positioning, the types of positions, and floating and clearing elements. So if you have not already, you might want to explore chapter 15, floating and positioning. A lot of the concepts which I'm going to cover in this video lecture, you can learn more in chapter 15. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to go to Codepen, and what we will do first is create our structure outline. So what's very common is developers, user experience people also, matter of fact more so probably user experience people, will create a wireframe. So they have their content in mind, and then they think about the structure and the meaning of their content, and they begin to assign these meaningful block level elements. And these block level elements are going to be the foundation, sort of the blueprint of your visual layout. And wireframes can be simple, like the one we see here, or they can be much, much more detailed, where we're including all of the element names, class names, IDs, all of the properties being used, widths, heights, margin, padding, border, background images. You get it. They can be very, very detailed. And it really depends on who's doing what in the development process. Okay, so a user experience person might make a wireframe that is very, very detailed because they're going to hand this off to the coding people, and they don't want the coding people to have to guess at what the intent was. All right, so if you're a front-end person and you have a good idea of what you're doing, then your wireframe might be simpler because you're just gonna fill in the blanks on the fly because you know what your end intent is. Okay, so the level of detail is really the role that the person is playing, and are they handing off the wireframe. All right, so you get an idea of what a wireframe is. So we're going to create and we're going to experiment with CSS position after we create this our structure from this wireframe. Okay, all right, let's get started here. So let me just hide that, and we'll start with our HTML. And I have ours set up where we're going to make a div element, okay, like so. And let's go ahead and press return, and immediately inside of our div is header. And I went ahead and I set the autocomplete. So in my settings here, where is it? In my settings? I don't want to leave the site what I'm working on right now, so I'm just going to cancel. But if you go to your settings, and I believe on the first page of settings, you can set the autocomplete, so you don't have to end or you don't have to manually end your elements. Okay, so we have our header. Following the header will be main. Now we're going to have main be a parent to a section, and I'm going to copy this section and paste it 2 more times. So let's go ahead and paste twice, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add an aside. And there is our aside. Now, following main, we will add our footer element. All right, so let's just go ahead and save. And we're not going to see anything because if we were to preview this, because we've just created the structure and these block elements are empty, so they would just all collapse on themselves. All right, but you get a general idea that what we've just created, our structural outline, is based off of having a div as the main containing element, a header, then a main. And when I say a main contain, it's a container, okay? So we're using our generic div, which is a block element, as a parent to hold all of the other content. Inside is a header element, following is a main element. Then we've nested 1, 2, 3 sections, an aside, our main closes, we open our footer, close our footer, and then we close our div. Generic block level element. Okay. All right. So you can see we often, after looking at our content, thinking about what is what container holds what, if you will, or what content, whichever is the most meaning, then we create our wireframe, which gives us a visual layout. So we can then go and create our HTML structural outline. Okay, so in the next setup, or in the next video, we're going to add classes to our generic elements, and we're going to add classes to our elements like section, which we're using more than one time. And we might want them to behave differently, so we could attach classes to them. All right, so we'll pick that up in the next video.